What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. I'm Dr. Jim Cellini. I'm a board-certified practicing veterinary neurologist. In this video, I want to react to a recent video posted by Dr. Mike. No, not that Dr. Mike. The real Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike is a physician based in, I believe, New Jersey, and he has over 10 million subscribers on YouTube, which is absolutely insane. Dr. Mike recently posted a video a few days ago detailing the complications that his dog Roxy endured after having a mass removed from her front paw. And this resulted in an amputation. And Dr. Mike throws some what I would characterize as professional shade at the veterinarians involved in her care. So I wanted to make a video kind of giving some of my thoughts about his video and react to it. Please, before I do that, guys, if you don't mind hitting the like and subscribe button, always helps the channel out. All right, let's get started.
Roxy, my husky. She's the OG rock star that helped me launch my social media career. Today, I want to share a very important story of something that happened with Roxy. It's a terrible situation. As you can tell, she's now a tripod, a three-legged dog, and she's doing well, but this situation could have been avoided, and I want to arm you with information that you should know when you have to make a choice when your pet gets sick. So to set up the story, Roxy now lives with my dad, so he takes care of her vet stuff, takes her in for checkups. And Roxy had sort of a bump growing on her right arm. And this bump was there for several years. It may have grown slightly over the course of those years, but this bump never bothered her, so I wasn't too concerned about it. But my dad said, you know what, I'm gonna point it out to the vet on the upcoming visit, which I thought was a very good idea. So when they went to go get this bump checked out and an overall physical, they said, you know, for 12 years old, this dog is doing very well, in good health, running all the time. She's so fit, she's so active. She looks like an 8-year-old dog. But they said, we wanna take a sample of the bump on her leg and send it for cytology.
What he's describing here is a process called an FNA, which stands for a fine needle aspirate, where you take a tiny needle into a mass that you're wondering about. You suck back some of the cells that the needle is in with a syringe. The needle's attached to like a 3cc syringe. You suck back some of that tissue. You then squirt that tissue onto a slide. You stain the slide, and then you look at it under a microscope to see, is there evidence of cancer cells here? And if so, what type of cancer cells are there? Minimally invasive, low cost, and it gives you an idea potentially right away if this is something you need to even worry about going forward. So pretty common first step when you see a mass on your dog to do that first to try to get a sense of what it is.
So after my dad went, he gave my phone number for the vet to call back. And then when the vet ended up calling me back, they said that, you know, unfortunately, the cytology came back and it looks like this is a cancerous bump. They called it a sarcoma, which means that it's a soft tissue cancer. And they recommended bringing the dog back in for a consultation with the surgeon. So I told my dad a list of questions that I wanted him to ask the surgeon. And those questions are questions that you should always ask before going in for a procedure. A, is this type of cancer that Roxy has dangerous in that is it likely to spread? Is it likely to cause problems elsewhere in her body? What's the 5-year survival rate? What impact will this have on her life as a 12-year-old dog? Is it worth for a 12-year-old husky to go for a surgery on her leg to remove a tumor that so far has yet to cause a problem? And I thought my dad, being a physician, would be well armed to ask these questions, and I trusted him to do so.
Okay, so right off the bat, this is a red flag for me. Whenever you are tasking somebody else to ask your vet about your own dog, you are risking a game of telephone here, breaking down a lot of things and getting a lot of pre-operative or pre-treatment questions not covered the way you think they should be. You know, his dad's a physician, like he said. His dad would be as well equipped, you know, knowledge base wise as anybody to ask these sorts of questions. But my question in watching this is, did his dad actually ask these questions? And did they ask the primary vet or did they ask the surgeon these questions? Because they should be asking the surgeon these questions. I assume they did so, but it's a little unclear. I think Dr. Mike should have just done this himself and spoken to the vet about his own dog. I think that's step number one. You would be so surprised how many problems begin with this tiniest little breakdown in communication or lapse when somebody else is trying to communicate for a third party who actually owns the pet that you're seeing. It's just really difficult to navigate that communication style.
I actually don't talk to him the following day when he actually went for the visit. And the next day, he sends me a picture of Roxy wearing a cast, healing up in the sun in the backyard. And I thought, oh, wow, she must be doing so much better.
Okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, he sent his dad to ask all these questions to, I think now, the surgeon. And he doesn't speak to his dad, and then all of a sudden his dog gets a surgery, and he hasn't covered with his dad the questions that he was wondering about preoperatively in the first place. Like, this is the start of it, guys. This is how complications so often happen, is you just don't get the questions answered that you should have asked. And frankly, he should have been asking his dad, like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, let's check in. What did they say about the questions that I sent you to ask? And the next time he communicates with his dad, his dog's already had surgery. So his dad, who was not in this video, was not being interviewed in this video, apparently made all these decisions. And let's think about that as we watch the video and as Dr. Mike kind of starts to insinuate decision-making by the vets.
The doctor told me that it wouldn't be that big of a procedure and that they could likely do this, in and out, 1 day's time. And they thought it was beneficial. I was a little bit skeptical, but seeing the fact that she was recovering was very promising to me. And then like a week goes by and my dad calls me while I'm working in the hospital and says, Mike, like, I need you to come home after the hospital and look at Roxy's leg. I don't think it's good. And I'm like, but wait, like, I'm not a surgeon, A, I'm not a vet, B. If you think it's bad, then that means probably we should go get it checked out at the vet. And he was like, no, I have an appointment with him like in 2 days. I'm going to go then. That's when the surgeon is there because he's on vacation.
Real quick, point of advice. If you see something that's alarming like this, don't just wait 2 days to get it looked at. Being physicians, they should realize, like, you shouldn't wait with this sort of stuff. Like, if there's a suture site infection or an issue with circulation, or the bandage is too tight and you're seeing signs of that, that's not something you just wait on. You need to call the vet and actually have them looked at and talk to them.
There's some complicated things. Okay, of course I'll come by. So when I came by, I'm looking at Roxy's foot. It was now unwrapped. And this is a graphic photo, but I'm going to show it. Her foot was dead. Her paw was dead. Like, there was no blood flow. It was a cold foot. It smelled gangrenous, which means it was becoming infected. I was like, Dad, like, this is terrible. Like, she's gonna lose her foot. Like, there's no, like, this foot has clearly not had circulation for a long period of time. And for me, what I wasn't sure of, was this an issue of the bandage being very tight, or was this more of an issue surgically, that when they removed the tumor, they also took out extra tissue and possibly the blood vessels that go down to her foot?
I don't think that's very likely. In order to damage blood vessels to an extent that the entire foot would necrose, there's just really no reasonable way to do that without like absolute malice. Dogs in general are really good at collateralizing their circulation. And if you look at the blood vessel anatomy to a dog's front leg, you can see the surgery site's going to be at like the top of the leg where he was pointing out. And there's really only one major blood vessel that, even if they completely obliterated it, still would not cause the entire, leg down to the foot to necrose like this. You would have to damage all of the arteries that surrounded the leg, and there's really no way to do that. So I think this, if I had to guess, this is probably an issue with the bandage being too tight and cutting off circulation, or maybe an infection that happened post-operative, or potentially there might be something like a compartment syndrome type problem where they tried to suture the wound closed and that cut off circulation in and of its own.
And my dad never clarified this with the surgeon. Roxy, leave it. So I was very upset about that and wondering the whole time, A, should have Roxy have gotten the surgery? B, did the surgeon make a mistake? C, was the bandage on too tight? And honestly, it's really hard to know. So that when my dad actually went in there, they basically said, yeah, look, we think we should amputate. And my dad let me speak to the surgeon. And I asked the surgeon very frankly, look, is this a mess up? Did we take out too much, tissue that the blood vessel came out along with it? Because if you take out the arteries and the blood vessels that are higher in the leg, they essentially feed.
Yeah, but I don't think that would require doing surgery in the wrong place, way far away from where the tumor was. So I think that's really unlikely.
It Or was it that the bandage was on too tight in the rehab process? Or is she an older dog and this is a normal complication that happens time to time? And he basically said all of the above. And while I appreciate the honesty, because he said, look, we had to take out a lot of tissue, the tumor was larger than we expected, I think like if I was working with a human surgeon, I think that we would have thought about those risks, that if we open up or are potentially getting ready to open up a person's body, and then we see that we can cause more damage than actually benefit by doing a biopsy or removing a tumor, we actually don't do it.
Again, we don't have access to the actual conversation that the surgeon had with Dr. Mike's dad. So this gets back to my original point of like having somebody else do the communication for you. I'm willing to bet that the surgeon covered all of these risks with Dr. Mike's dad. And I can't imagine that, this is something that happens. Like, this is not an unheard of complication. And for a surgeon to like do this and be like, yeah, let's do it real quick, and then not go over any of this, every surgeon I've ever worked with is very thorough about like, look, these are all the complications that could happen. Here's all the risks. Here's all the benefits. You make the decision. Let me know what to do. I'm skeptical that the surgeon didn't have this conversation with his dad.
So I asked the surgeon, like, what was the dog's staging of the cancer? And it was a stage 1 sarcoma. And not to say that this isn't serious, it's just that at 12 years old, Roxy's life expectancy is maybe another 2 years.
This is the part that confuses me the most. He's saying that her sarcoma was a stage 1. Staging is determining like how the cancer has spread. So in dogs, a lot of times we'll do chest x-rays, abdominal ultrasound, sometimes CT, to look at the major body cavities and see like, hey, is there cancer elsewhere in the body? If there is, then we're probably not going to move forward with some sort of surgery if the cancer's already spread elsewhere and it becomes a quality of life discussion. Staging is something you do before the surgery. Like, you figure out if you should do the surgery with staging. So I don't know if he means staging or if he means grade. And I think he actually means grade. Grade is like how the tumor looks and behaves under a microscope. And you can't know that with the aspirate that he mentioned at the beginning, the cytology. You have to actually get a chunk of tissue, do a biopsy, look at it under a microscope, and like large portions of tissue. So I think he means grade here. And I assume the dog had, staging done prior to the surgery. And I'm also assuming that if they did that, then they didn't find anything, i.e. there was no sign of cancer elsewhere in the body. But I think that he needs to clarify grade here rather than stage, because they know the staging before the surgery. They are informed of that going in. Like, that is a thing that you always tell owners.
Now we're saying we have to amputate her entire leg. And not just the entire leg, the scapula as well, because apparently in dogs this is the way to do it. That they tend to handle amputations better than humans because they don't have the psychological traumatic component of this.
He touches on a really nice thing here, which is that dogs do handle amputations a lot better than people. Dogs don't have like a lot of the anxiety and the stress and like the shame that comes in removing a limb. Dogs are great at just like saying, okay, this is my new me and I'm going to adapt to it.
Roxy has recovered quite well, thank God. She had a mean scar, you can't really see it now, but it's healed up quite well. We took out the staples a few weeks ago. She's now going for longer walks with my dad. When I come home, she's wagging her tail. She's still shedding like a monster, as you can tell from all of my clothes. She's still super sweet. She's happy, obviously slightly lower energy because she fatigues. And now I know she has higher risks of getting arthritis in her legs because she's unbalanced. When you bring your dog to the vet, make sure you're armed with good information. Make sure you ask hard questions of both not only the general vet, but the surgeon. Make sure they give you accurate risk assessments, because it's very easy to say, oh, we'll just take this out, easy peasy, no problem. But then like your dog can lose a limb and it could be quite frustrating because it feels like you didn't get all the information.
I really don't think, I could be wrong, I wasn't there, just another disclaimer. I really don't think the surgeon said, oh, this is no big deal, no problem. I really don't think that.
Pets are sadly not immortal, and you want to think about their quality of life just as importantly as you do the length of their life. So hopefully Roxy continues to be a little rock star that she is. She loves her treats. And I'm really glad that, this terrible situation kind of had not the worst ending.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. In particular, if you're a vet that does a lot of surgery or you're a surgery specialist, let me know in the comments below or reach out to me by email or DM on Instagram. I'm DVM Cellini on Instagram and TikTok. Let me know what you think about this. Thought it was an interesting video. But also, we should talk about some of the other side and some of the communication that he kind of glossed over. So, hope you guys stay well. I'll see you in the next video. Appreciate it.